I unfortunately have major commitments coming up, so I just won't have time to work on it. On that note, there probably won't be a new video for the months of July and August, but I'll be back in September with probably another game jam. Yeah, screw that. It's Untitled Game Jam's birthday. Clear my schedule. We're making another game. So this jam runs through June 28th, with the voting period ending on July 5th. Unfortunately, I'm leaving to become a lighthouse keeper for a couple months on July 4th, so I won't be able to make a post-jam update, but I still want to do something for Bernard's birthday. The jam has started, and the theme is... That's an interesting one. So if you don't know who Devin is, he's the owner of UGJ. But, there's a problem.
So how do you know he's dead?
I pinged him on Discord 10 minutes ago, and he didn't respond.
You are aware that he's probably just busy, right? 10 minutes isn't that long.
We're in a game jam! Every second is precious!
You need to calm down.
Calm down? The owner of the jam is dead, there's rioters all through the streets of the server, and you expect me to calm... So after waiting an hour and a half for Devin to show up, apparently the theme is cruise ships. I'm slightly annoyed about the timing actually, because I'm going on a cruise in August, so if this jam were happening then, I could have just made the game there and said that was me following the theme. Anyways, my first idea was a zombie game based around current events with the hantavirus. I ultimately decided this might be a little too recent, so I decided not to. Around 12 hours into the jam, I was googling some fun facts about cruise ships to try and find inspiration and learned something that intrigued me. Apparently, cruise ship companies often skip creating a 13th deck. They go straight from floor 12 to 14. This is because of two main reasons. One is that 13 is superstitiously bad luck, and two is that some people have a phobia around the number 13. So this gave me an idea for a short, spooky narrative, and the gameplay eventually grew from there. The idea is an atmospheric horror game. I was debating between using Godot 3 and targeting a web build, but ultimately decided to use Godot 4 and make a downloadable version. This is so that I could have advantages such as shaders and better lighting. But before even starting development, I decided to procrastinate and draw some concept art. The game will still follow a pixel art style, but I've been trying to get better at other art styles anyway, so this was just an excuse to do that. But it did result in the first day and a half of the jam being wasted. After realizing how much time I had lost to procrastination and only panicking slightly, I got started on making all the animations for the player, which is really just an idle animation and 4 for walking. After setting up the animations and movement in Godot, it's time to get started on the atmosphere part of this atmospheric horror game. I started by making everything really dark. Then, after making a light mask and coding a few effects, I had some cool lights to use in my levels. Now while the lights do look good, the player looks very flat when standing in them. So, I decided to add something I had never actually tried before, and that's 2D normal maps. If you don't know what a normal map is, it's basically a texture that tells the game what direction each pixel is facing. It gives our game a much more 3D look, and helps things appear less flat. Since this was my first time making one, it took some trial and error to get there, and even though it took 2 hours for some mediocre results, I'm still glad I did it just to learn something new. Now, I rarely add any kind of narrative to my games. The only time I did was with my game Alkapocalypse, which had a very goofy narrative about aliens invading while the player was drunk. Honestly, my implementation of the cutscene system in that game was pretty bad, so I'm just gonna remake it from scratch. Simple enough, we can now put a bunch of events in a sequence to create cutscenes. We have events for dialogue, fading in and out, or playing a sound.
Meow.
I made sure to keep the system pretty modular so I can easily add new event types to our cutscenes when necessary. Next, I wanted to crack down on making environments. I started by making an interior tile atlas with carpet, walls, and a door. I then used this to make some interiors for the boat. I even stitched them together by adding a new cutscene event which allows you to switch scenes, so we get a really cool fading effect. I then set up elevator functionality, which allows the player to use the elevator as a hub to go to other scenes. However, there's not really any other scenes to go to right now, so it's time to add that. I made a scene for Deck 20, complete with an ice cream bar and pool. And now you can use the elevator to switch which deck you're on. After that, I started doing things a little out of order and recorded some sound effects. This was because my roommate was out of the house for that day, so I didn't have to worry too much about background noise. I ended up recording 6 different sound effects and downloaded an additional 3 from asset packs. However, there was something missing. For the elevator, I wanted very specific music. I was looking for typical elevator music, but I wanted it to be slightly unnerving or creepy, like something was slightly off. I did a few attempts at making some, but they mostly ended up sounding like themes to a shop more than anything. So, like most of the problems in life, the solution was money. I ended up commissioning someone on the UGJ Discord server called Cactus Does Music, who is incredibly talented. I've left a link to their Ko-fi and YouTube channel in the description, but while we wait for the commission to be completed, I added all the sound effects into Godot. Here's what the game sounds like with all of the audio except the elevator music. Next, it's time to add the only NPC in the game, the Ice Cream Man. I won't go too in-depth about him because he mostly serves as a narrative piece, but all it took to set him up was to create some art and add some cutscenes. I then put together the final scene needed for the game, Deck 13. It's basically a maze with a door, however, that's when something happened. So you remember this guy? Well, he ended up eating my leftover pizza I had in the fridge, and we all know that cannot be forgiven, so as punishment, he has been pixelated. Once I had him and his animation set up in Godot, it was time to give him some AI.
Did somebody say
Get out.
Yep. I was thinking the same thing.
God, I hate my roommate. Anyways, I started by giving the creature the ability to explore. It will basically pick a random point on the tile map and navigate its way to that point. I then gave it the ability to detect the player, which is when it's supposed to start chasing you. So I got that working next. But while I was working on that, Cactus Does Music finished the song I had commissioned, and it turned out even better than I could have possibly imagined. After adding it into Godot, all that was really left to do was add the sequence of events and cutscenes for the narrative. However, I won't go into that because I don't want to spoil the game. For the finishing touches, I set up a main menu, recorded a couple more sound effects, and added controller support. After all that was done, I built the project. Once I had a game page set up, I submitted it to the jam. Surprisingly, I was one of only 4 submissions. So, here's some info about the other 3 games in no particular order. Crab Killer by Midna the Black Robe and Happy Havoc is a small game where you explore an abandoned wreckage and get absolutely bodied by 2 crabs. Polish Cruise Line Simulator by Mishikfid is a small tycoon game where you manage a cruise line. You have to maintain budgeting and watch over oil costs while sending your boats to travel the world. All Aboard by Hydrolacity and Redhead Rise from the Darkness is a roguelike deck builder where you build and manage your own cruise ship. The goal is to get as high a rating as possible before the end of the trip. So as mentioned earlier in the video, I'm going to be a lighthouse keeper for a few weeks after this jam, so there's no post-jam update. After returning from the island a couple weeks later, I went to check the results. Turns out I placed 3rd overall, meaning I won a prize. A whole entire $5 in game assets! Now, a lot of people might be saying, wow, $5? That's nothing to be happy about. However, I find these $5 very special. because this is officially the first time I've made money or won a prize in game development. So I want to give a big thank you to the Untitled Game Jam theme, including Devin, Lex, DJ Slimy, and anyone else who helps out with the jam. But now I'm just rambling, so I'm gonna end the video. I've got very big plans coming towards the end of September, so please like and subscribe if you're interested in seeing that. I'm so excited to announce what I've been working on, but I can't just yet. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. We're in it! Shit. Anything break? No, nothing broke.